Well, one of the greatest sense when you're a child is the sense of curiosity. When you are, literally able to, to walk around and be on your knees and on your feet and crawl around. The reason why you go out from your mother's comfort or in your little cot is because you see things, you see objects, you see colors, and you go out, on all fours as a 8-month or a 10-month or a 12-month-year-old, and you want to see what's there. What's that shiny bright thing? What's that light? What's that color? I think this sense of curiosity is what has led to some of the greatest discoveries in the world. And the sense of curiosity starts very early in childhood. And unfortunately, when we become adults with responsibilities, with mortgages, with families, with jobs, with the daily commute to work, paying the bills, all sorts of things, our sense of curiosity reduces. And I think, amongst the teenagers or our young guests that are here today, one of the things I want to encourage and ensure that they have this sense of curiosity, remain true to their spirits, because it is what is going to find us the next cures of cancer. It is their curiosity which is going to lead a colony onto Mars and the exploration both inwards, what we're made of and what is out there. And it's this sense of curiosity which is going to create the future Nobel winners, the future Bill Gates, the future Steve Jobs, the future Mary Pasteurs and Albert Einsteins. And it's a good point that I just raised, is that Albert Einstein, his journey towards his scientific discovery started up when he was a child at school. In fact, he was so focused on science and trying to solve issues that he did very badly in other subjects. And his headmaster told him that he'll never amount to anything. This is Albert Einstein we're talking about. So the sense of curiosity is extremely important. And I think what science teaches us is that you have to ask questions, and you have to ask the right questions, and then to be able to find the answers. And if we don't ask those questions, we will not find the answers, and we will not find solutions. I mean, just look around. I'm talking to you on Zoom, on a PC computer, which was a culmination of many scientists, many software engineers, many designers that created a product, that created the software, that created the communication network for us to be able to talk now. This particular method we're using, Zoom, the founder was a Chinese gentleman who had an idea for a video app service, and he wanted to go to the US to do it. He tried, I think, 7 or 9 times to get a visa to the US so he could actually start Zoom. 7 or 9 times. And in the end, he finally got a visa, and here we are. And it is probably the most successful company of the last few years. And Zoom is now becoming a ubiquitous word. We don't say we're going to do a video call. We'll say we'll Zoom you. It's this sense of curiosity and this sense of persistence and the sense of seeing that you are going to achieve something. If I go through a list of all the scientists, as I mentioned, we have Albert Einstein, also Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton, as many of us who are probably not scientists, got his inspiration that what we've seen in the legend of Isaac Newton is that he was sitting under an apple tree, and when he saw an apple drop, he wanted to figure out why did the apple drop and hit the ground. Discovery of gravity. But his journey to that discovery took many years, and it started when he was a youth. He started working with his father at a very early age to produce little experiments. which basically helped him to understand and helped to develop the sense of questioning, to seek the answers. And that's one thing, if I could leave anything behind after this morning session with your great accelerator, Marcella, amazing work you're doing, is that, don't please lose your sense of curiosity. Ask the difficult questions. Ask Marcella all the difficult questions. Ask me, ask all the speakers on this. If you're not sure about something and you don't understand why this happens, and you want to find out why something happens for a particular reason, why has it to be done this way? I think the previous speaker mentioned, the founders and leaders, who make change, they question why something happens in a particular way. And then they try to see if something could be done in a different way or a better way. And that all, starts from a very early age. The people who become these scientists, become these engineers and the CEOs and founders, they basically build in, they encourage and they develop their curiosity, and they never let this sense of curiosity to drop. And you mentioned the great educationalist earlier on, and the hardships he went through. It's the same. He did not want to accept how things are done, and he wanted to make changes. We have a lot more inspiring figures. You have the Wright brothers, who created the first airplane. They're comparatively very young, but they started their journey at a very early age. And in terms of coming back to your question about genetics, I've always been fascinated about science. At the age of, I think, 10 or 12, I started reading physics books and electronics books, and I kept on nudging my father or harassing him to get me an electronic kit from a shop that was around at the time in the UK called Radio Shack, which allowed me to create little experiments, connecting wires up that would make sounds, would light up. One of the things that I built was a voice changer. I think I was about 13 at the time. And the voice changer would allow me to speak into it, and it would come out with a robotic voice. Eventually, I went to do further studies in computer science, as well as physics. But I also studied economics, and economics interested me even more because economics was about how societies function in terms of, not just finance, but how social structures are built, how economics, how financial policies influence governments, how they impact, from the person who is serving in a coffee shop all the way to a president of a bank, which then led me on to a subject area called marketing. And I decided to, find my home there. But 10 years later, I came back to technology because that was always my first love. And I started my first internet company, which was an online city guide. And the way we did it differently is we had people in the different cities around the world to produce content for us and to be able to upload it. So every day, the information was always fresh, latest news, what's happening in the city and so on. So onto genetics, the inspiration for that was a member of my family had developed breast cancer. And we wanted to actually carry out a test with other members of the family to see if they had a risk of developing the same cancer. In the UK, this is not offered routinely. You have to pay for it unless more than one member of the family has been diagnosed. So the cost was something like $3,000 per person. And I wanted to find out, why does it cost so much? Because I'd always been reading about, you can do a whole genome sequence, which means read the entire gene of a human for now about less than $1,000. So why did it cost so much? So I started this journey of discovery, visiting labs, visiting, the Welcome Center you just mentioned, and many other centers. And I saw what was there were very large machines, a lot of busy people, very big rooms. And I thought, this is why it costs so much, because this equipment costs so much, and these technologies are, cutting edge, and therefore quite expensive at the time being, and it required a lot of people. So then I could realize why many parts of the world don't have these capabilities. It's a cost issue, and it's an expertise issue. So together with an old friend of mine who was my co-founder or CTO of my first company, we started this journey of actually investigating why does it, how could we do it better? What could we change? Which then led us to set up our own company to design and develop a system that would allow everything to be done in a single machine. So when you actually do genetic testing, there's lots of different processes. First of all, when you take somebody's blood sample, you have to separate the blood from plasma. From the plasma, you extract the cells. From the cells, you extract the DNA. Then you have to purify the DNA. And then you have to amplify, meaning you have to make millions of copies of that same DNA. Once that DNA is purified, and you check it in a special machine, which tells you, what's the quality of the DNA and, how many copies do you have. Then what you have to do is you have to attach special chemicals which are attached to the genes that a doctor might be interested in looking. So for example, if your doctor thinks that you may be risk at developing certain breast cancers or prostate cancer, you can look at the specific genes called BRCA1, BRCA2. So the process requires chemical markers to be attached to those areas of genes, and a special machine called a sequencer will then be able to read those special markers and able to read the sequence of the molecules that form that particular gene. And then looking at the sequence and comparing it to the previous known versions, or somebody who doesn't have that issue, you can see where the difference has taken place. And then you can calculate what is the risk of this person getting cancer and what are the potential therapies. So we decided that this 3 or 4 portions or 3 or 4 process steps are actually what holds up genetic testing. So we designed a system that would allow it to be completely automated, and also the actual machines needed to be shrunk to the size of a credit card size. So each step is done on something called a microfluidic device. So people may have heard of microchips, which move electrons. So microfluidics are like chips, but like sort of electronic chips, but instead of moving electrons, you're actually moving droplets or liquids, or in some scale even molecule-sized liquids from one area to another, and then to be able to mix with other liquids, and then to be able to analyze them. So we developed that technology, and we are now in the process of actually building a team in California and to actually start prototyping it. And we hope that what we're doing will inspire other scientists, other researchers to be able to use our technology to come up with new ways of testing. And as you know, Marcelo, one of my interests is to empower people in the developing world, in the less fortunate nations around the world. So instead of sending samples to other countries, instead of only the wealthy having access to these kind of tests, ordinary people could have these tests. So we hope what we start will be a revolution. We hope that in many years that some of the people in this room who will become geneticists or clinicians or doctors will be able to use our technology to be able to diagnose what their patients are suffering from. So to come back to the original question, all this, didn't come about because I woke up one day and I thought that's what I want to do. It came from an inspiration, but it's the sense of curiosity of trying to find out why is something a particular way and why is something in another way, and how could we change it? And that starts at very early age. It's questioning what I mentioned to you, even when we're as a baby, we have this curiosity to touch, to look at. And when we're very early age, just put it in our mouth to see what it is. Is it eatable? Can we eat it? So all the people in this room, all our young audience members, I would encourage to please don't lose your sense of curiosity. Please carry on developing it. No question is stupid. No question is idiotic. And don't feel that just because you don't know, it means that other people don't know. There are probably many others amongst your groups that have the same question. I would like our audience members to have the courage to ask the question and not feel silly that just because they don't understand it, it may give them feeling other people understand it and they're the only unique person that doesn't understand it. That's not the case. The winners in this world, the people who make the changes, are the ones who ask the difficult questions, are the misfits, are the odd people who don't find acceptance, and they're not content with what it is, what is happening now. They want to make a change. They want to know why things happen and if things could be done better. So my parting advice to all our friends is please keep your sense of curiosity, ask the difficult questions. We live in a great age that virtually every bit of information is, accessible through our mobile phones, through computers. We've never had this. Marcello, when you and I growing up, we had to go to reference libraries. We had to go to libraries, and often libraries are far away, and spend Saturdays and Sundays reading through books, which were thumbed by thousands of other people before us. Here we are in this age now. We can get a book delivered to us the next day. We can access virtually the entire content that has ever been produced in the world is available now in many websites. We have Wikipedia, which provides a lot of information and also understanding of things that we don't know. Then there are various websites. There are the Khan Academy, the foundation in the US that helps young people and even older people like myself understand certain scientific principles, mathematical principles, and so on. So make use of these tools, satisfy your sense of curiosity, but don't ever lose it, please. Thank you, Marcello.
Thanks so much, Dan. And, Wikipedia back in our days was called Encyclopedia Britannica, right? So if you're lucky enough to have one of those at home, it's like 35 volumes of 1,000 pages each. And that was the closest it had to Wikipedia that you could have as a local reference. And that would lead into library research and all sorts of the DEOWAY separation system, if you're familiar with that, which is how they place the books in the libraries, and is still used today. But all of those things were needed for Jimmy Wales to come up with the Wikipedia idea and say, hey, maybe there's a better way of doing that if you can crowdsource it. And the fact is, Jimmy goes to Davos basically every year. I've met him on a number of occasions, and we were in the same event recently. And during his session, he was explaining that the reason why Wikipedia was designed the way it was is because they had no money. They just could not afford to hire 20 people to do something, because they started in 2001, 2002, just after the major crisis, which is tech bubble burst, and no money was around for investment. So okay, instead of giving up, we just shifted gears into let's ride this rough period. What are the elements that we need to put together to be able to create value that can then be fine-tuned according to the feedback of the users? And the whole wiki in Hawaiian apparently means fast, right? But it became a synonym for crowdsourcing. And there's a wiki. A wiki is lots of people collaborating. There's a collective intelligence, making sure that you remove spam and false information, because there are lots of editors, and it works, right? And they were the first example of company, but no, they are assimilated to a non-profit. I mean, I believe that Wikipedia is a foundation, and then he has lots of for-profit elements like Fandom and a few other companies there. But the core element that he created was a leverage that allowed so many people to do so much more with their lives. And I think one of the reasons why he managed to do that is because he was paying attention, right? No, he was abundantly curious, that's for sure. And he was also looking around and go like, hey, what's the best that I can do with what I've got? Now, what is a meal I can cook with what's in the fridge? Rather than trying to paint a perfect picture. And if it's not perfect, if you cannot hire a team of 20 developers to do something, you're not going to get started. We wouldn't have Wikipedia today, right? So I think that curiosity is a very, very important element. Losing curiosity is a sad reality. No, it comes with life, but a little bit like aging, it can be reduced and hopefully reversed, right? So you can have older people becoming curious again. How wonderful the world would be if that happened at a very large scale. And
that's a very good subject you raised, Marcello, because science and research shows that the more your brain is active as you get older, the younger you remain. the longer you would live, the happier you live. So the more engaged your brain is, the more learning you do. And that's why you see a lot of, our seniors, many seniors are still reading books. They do Sudoku, they do crossword puzzles.
Yeah.
That keeps the brain alive. It keeps the brain plasticity, still going, and it still keeps the neurons functioning, and it has an effect on the rest of the body, how the body ages, how the cells change. So I think keeping the sense of curiosity and having mental dexterity is very important. Having this sense of still challenging your mind, solving puzzles, even crossword puzzles are amazing, jigsaw puzzles, and research has shown doing exercises like this help you stay fit, help you stay alert, help you feel younger, help you to fight diseases. Mental depressions often happen when people actually disengage their brain. And once you have a depression or anxiety, other physiological conditions happen to your body. You increase weight, you become more ill. And keeping the sense of curiosity alive and doing these mental challenges, puzzles, whatever it is, reading has a profound effect on the brain. Reading multiple books during a month or a week, it can also keep the brain plastic, so that you're still forming new neurons. You're still expanding your brain's capacity. So it's very important. And I think one of the things that Wikipedia does is that if you want to know something, so if I want to know, for example, what is the highest peak in Switzerland, I can quickly go to Wikipedia and get that information. If I want to know what is the best way to ski, in a particular way, I'm sure somebody's created a Wikipedia page for that. So it is what you said. It's the wisdom of all the people that have interests, that are that are passionate about their subjects. They're able to contribute, and they're able to impart their wisdom for the rest of us. And then, as you obviously seen Wikipedia, not everybody disagrees. People actually challenge some of the information is that given, and that's the discourse that we need. So if somebody says something is done this way, somebody may have an opposite way, and that allows us to learn and understand things that develop or work in a particular way. So I completely agree with you that Wikipedia has been an amazing tool. And you mentioned those 1,000-page volumes. You forgot to mention the cost of those those encyclopedias. Nowadays you could buy a car. You could buy a small car for the cost of a whole volume of those encyclopedias. They were that expensive. And yet now we have probably 1 million times the magnitude of those encyclopedias available for free at the tip of our hands.
Yeah, there was an intermediary step, right? To remember Expedia, which was the first CD encyclopedia published by Microsoft. It brought the prices down to like $50 or whatever that was, which was incredible considering that the Britannica was maybe 2,000 or more. Well, you can probably buy an edition from 1970 of Britannica now for $100, but no, that's just going to be for the decorative purposes more than anything else. Yeah, that's great. So thanks again for joining, Tan. I know you are really helping us out here because it was a last minute cancellation and you just jumped in with so much enthusiasm and gave us a great session. So it was a real pleasure to have you with us, and we'll be in touch soon, right? So let's have a chat next week.
Thank you, Marcello, and thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure, and I hope our young audience is enthused by what you're doing, and they find it very useful as an encouragement, as inspiration to become the next Steve Jobs or the next astronauts or the next discoverer of a drug that will solve cancer or many other illnesses.